Zekthorn's three-fingered hand trembled as he stared at the holographic display floating before him in the Academy's central data hall. The Galactic Taxonomic Institute had just released their decennial apex species rankings, a comprehensive analysis of every sentient species' biological capabilities, survival metrics, and evolutionary advantages across the known universe. As a xenobiology doctoral candidate from Kepler 442b, Zek had spent the last 4 cycles preparing his thesis around the presumed dominance of his own people, the HFY, in the predator efficiency category. But something was wrong, terribly, impossibly wrong. His eye stalks contracted in disbelief as he scrolled through the rankings. The HFY weren't first. They weren't even in the top 10. His mandibles clicked nervously as he continued downward through the list, past the silicon-based crystallics of Tau Ceti, past the hive-minded Vexorans, past even the near-immortal Eonites who could regenerate from a single cell. And then he saw it. Rank 1 Homo sapiens human, origin, Sol 3 Earth. Zekthorn's respiratory spiracles flared in what could only be described as panic. This had to be an error. Humans, the soft, slow creatures from that unremarkable yellow dwarf system, the species that had only achieved interstellar travel 300 cycles ago. He had dissected human anatomy in his undergraduate coursework. They were fragile, short-lived, possessed no natural armor, no venom, no telepathic abilities. They were barely worth cataloging. His clawed hand moved instinctively to request the detailed analysis file. As the data materialized, Zek's primary brain struggled to process what his optical sensors were feeding it. Halfway across the station, in the Academy's Xenopsychology wing, Ana Martinez leaned back in her chair, a slight smile playing across her lips as she watched the real-time feed of alien reactions flooding the campus network. The Italian-American researcher had been waiting for this moment for 2 years, ever since she'd been recruited by the Institute to contribute the human data set for the Apex rankings. "They're losing their minds," said David Russo from the workstation beside her, his dark eyes gleaming with amusement. The astrophysicist had helped Anna crunch the numbers, running simulation after simulation to verify what they both suspected. Humanity's ranking wasn't an error. It was an understatement. "Look at this one." Anna pointed to a feed showing a Vexoran professor literally shedding its outer carapace in distress. "I almost feel bad." "Almost?" David echoed, grinning. He pulled up another data stream. "The HFY delegation has requested an emergency tribunal. They're claiming data corruption." Anna's smile faded slightly. "They're going to want proof, real, undeniable proof." "Then we'll give it to them," David said, his expression hardening. "We've been underestimated since the day we joined this galactic community. Time they understood what Apex actually means." Zekthorn couldn't stop reading. The file was massive, over 40,000 pages of compiled research, statistical analysis, and empirical evidence. Each section seemed more absurd than the last. Endurance metrics. Humans possessed what the report called persistence predator characteristics. While most predators relied on burst speed or ambush tactics, humans could simply continue. Their cooling system, sweat glands, allowed them to regulate temperature while in motion, something almost unheard of in the galaxy. The report contained footage of a human named Courtney Dawalter running for over 200 Earth miles without stopping. Zek's people could sprint at incredible speeds, but only for minutes before overheating. Humans could hunt prey by literally following it until it collapsed from exhaustion. Psychological resilience. This section made Zek's chromatic display flush with confused colors. Humans didn't just survive trauma, they sought it out. They called it training. The report detailed something called Hell Week from human military programs, where candidates were systematically deprived of sleep, food, and comfort for days while performing extreme physical tasks. The survival rate was low, but those who passed exhibited stress tolerance levels that exceeded every known species baseline by a factor of 3. Adaptive intelligence. Here, Zek had to pause and verify the translation matrix 3 times. Humans possessed what xenopsychologists termed aggressive neuroplasticity. Their brains could rewire themselves to compensate for massive damage. The report cited cases of humans losing entire brain hemispheres and regaining function through neural adaptation. One case study showed a human pilot named Douglas Bader, who had lost both legs in an accident, then returned to combat with mechanical prosthetics and became one of his nation's most effective warriors. But what truly horrified Zek was the section on human pain tolerance. Humans had a chemical in their brains called adrenaline that, when released, allowed them to temporarily ignore injuries that would incapacitate most species. The report contained authenticated footage of a human mother lifting a ground transport vehicle off her trapped offspring. The vehicle's mass exceeded her body weight by a factor of 20. The emergency tribunal convened in the Academy's Grand Amphitheater 3 days later. Representatives from 40 species filled the circular chamber, their various forms of agitation evident in rustling feathers, clicking mandibles, and pulsing bioluminescence. At the center, Anna and David stood beside the holographic projection of Earth, calm and prepared. Zekthorn watched from the Cathari delegation, his academic curiosity now warring with something deeper, an instinctive wariness that his evolutionary programming couldn't suppress. High Arbiter Maldeth, a crystalline being whose body refracted light in dizzying patterns, spoke in the universal frequency. Researchers Martinez and Russo, the delegations have reviewed the Apex ranking data. Many question its validity. Some suggest bias. Explain how your species, lacking natural weapons, armor, or extraordinary sensory capabilities, achieved this ranking. Anna stepped forward, her posture relaxed but confident. High Arbiter, the confusion stems from a fundamental misunderstanding of what makes an apex species. Most of you are looking for physical traits, claws, fangs, armor. But evolutionary dominance isn't about what you're born with. It's about what you can become. She gestured and the hologram shifted to show Earth's diverse biomes. My species evolved on a planet that tried to kill us. Extreme temperature variations, megafauna predators, ice ages, supervolcanic eruptions, pandemic diseases. We had no natural defenses, so we developed something better, adaptability. David took over, pulling up genetic data. Our genome has sections that can activate or deactivate based on environmental pressure. Populations living at high altitudes develop increased lung capacity within generations. Those in cold climates develop different fat distribution patterns. We're not one species. We're thousands of variations optimized for specific challenges. But that's not the impressive part, Anna continued. Every species adapts. What makes humans apex is that we don't wait for evolution, we force it. The hologram changed again, showing human technological progression, from stone tools to spacecraft in a dizzying time lapse. In the time it takes most species to develop a single biological adaptation, we've created technology that allows us to survive in any environment in the known universe. Underwater, underground, in vacuum, on gas giants. We've even begun genetic self-modification. A murmur rippled through the chamber. Zekthorn felt his respiratory rate increase. You want proof of apex status? David's voice grew harder. Let me tell you about a human named Hugh Glass. In Earth Year 1823, he was attacked by a bear, a predator outweighing him by 300 kilograms. It mauled him, broke his leg, tore open his throat. His companions buried him, thinking he was dead. He woke up, crawled over 300 kilometers through hostile territory with infected wounds and no supplies, and survived. Not through luck, through will. Anna pulled up medical files. Or look at Aaron Ralston, who was trapped by a falling boulder. After 5 days with his arm crushed and gangrenous, he used a dull multi-tool to amputate his own limb, then rappelled down a cliff and hiked out for rescue. Or the Apollo 13 mission, where our astronauts jury-rigged life support systems from incompatible parts while suffocating in space and made it home. These aren't aberrations, David said. This is human baseline. When we're threatened, we don't retreat. We don't accept death. We problem-solve until physics itself bends. Zekthorn watched as Anna brought up the final data set, human conflict history. His chromatic display went pale. You want to know what really makes us apex? Anna's voice was quiet now, but it carried through the chamber like a blade. We're the only species that wars with itself. For 10,000 years, we've been our own primary predator. Every weapon system, every tactical doctrine, every survival strategy, we developed it fighting each other. By the time we reached space, we'd already optimized for combat against the most dangerous opponent in the galaxy, ourselves. The amphitheater fell silent. High Arbiter Maldeth's crystalline form seemed to dim slightly. The tribunal acknowledges the evidence, but this raises a concerning question. If humans are indeed apex, what does this mean for galactic security? Anna and David exchanged a glance. Then Anna smiled, a warm, genuine expression that somehow made Zek feel more uneasy than any threat display. It means, she said softly, that you're very fortunate we decided to be friends instead. Later, in the observation deck overlooking the station's docking arrays, Zekthorn found himself standing beside the two human researchers. He'd sought them out, driven by academic obligation to understand what he'd witnessed. I've reviewed the data 17 times, he admitted, his translator rendering his clicking speech into standard. I still don't understand. Your physiology is inferior to most predator species. You should have gone extinct. David looked out at the stars, his expression thoughtful. You're right. By every logical metric we should have. But we had one advantage. We're too stubborn to know when to quit. And too creative to fight fair, Anna added with a slight smile. Evolution gave us big brains to compensate for weak bodies. We used those brains to turn everything around us into tools, weapons, shelter. The whole planet became an extension of our capabilities. Zekthorn's eye stalks focused on her. But the violence, the self-directed conflict, how did you not destroy yourselves? We almost did, Anna said quietly. Several times. But each time we came close, enough of us chose cooperation over destruction. That's the other thing the ranking doesn't fully capture. We're apex predators, yes, but we're also apex cooperators. When we work together, there's almost nothing we can't accomplish. David gestured to the station around them. That's why we're here, not to conquer or dominate, to learn from you and to share what we've learned. Being apex doesn't mean being alone at the top. It means having the strength to lift others up with you. Zekthorn processed this for a long moment. Finally, his chromatic display shifted to a warm amber, a Cathar expression of respect. I think I understand now. Your species ranking isn't a threat. It's an invitation. Anna nodded. Exactly. Welcome to the human approach to galactic citizenship, Zekthorn. We survived by adapting. We thrived by cooperating. And now we're here to prove that apex doesn't mean alone. It means strong enough to protect everyone. As the three researchers stood together, watching ships from 100 worlds dock and depart, Zekthorn reflected on how much the galaxy was about to change. Humanity had arrived, and nothing would ever be the same. But perhaps, he thought, that wasn't something to fear. Perhaps it was something to celebrate. After all, an apex species that chose cooperation over domination. That was rarer than any biological adaptation in the known universe. That was truly extraordinary.